Hi, I'm Suzanne Shell, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about identifying kids for the target process. In thinking about kids who should be referred to target, teachers may want to consider a variety of data. The first thing that you'll want to look at, whether you're in the primary or intermediate school, are the student's grades. If the student has failing grades and you are implementing strategies in the classroom as interventions to help them and assist them in their grades, and the grades still are coming back as failing grades, then you certainly want to refer them to the target process. The other thing that you want to look at is dibbles. If a student is showing red, intensive in the dibbles, then you want to make sure that you take them directly to target, because students need 60 minutes of additional instruction if they're in the red part on dibbles in order to make gains throughout that year and be on grade level by the end of the year. If they're not receiving that 60 additional minutes on top of Reader's Workshop, then the students need other intervention and strategies because they won't be meeting end of the year grade level expectations. When referring a child to the target team process, you always want to keep the end in mind. Where does the student need to be by the end of the year, and what are the standards for that grade level? You want them to show progress over time, but you want to keep that end goal in mind. You may also want to consider a couple other data sources and watch kids carefully. The first one is if they're in the lowest 25% on the grade level diagnostics. That sends up a red flag that they're in the lowest percent. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to send them to target right then, but you're going to want to look at all the data sources that you have on that student if they're in the lowest 25% on diagnostics. For example, you might want to look at their DRA level and where they compare to the other students on their DRA level for that grade level. A lot of times if they're in the lowest 25%, then they're in the lower range of meeting grade level expectations on the DRAs. So you'll want to watch those two data sources to make sure that as time progresses throughout the year that the students are progressing to be at least toward the end of the year expectations before they exit into the next grade level. Kids that have been retained are also an area of concern. If they're in their repeating year of a retention year, then they should do extremely well in the first 9 weeks. If they're not doing extremely well in the first 9 weeks of a retention year, then that also sends up a red flag that you may want to look at the other data sources you have on that child to identify if that child needs to go into target. If in the first 9 weeks they do extremely well, then watch into the second and third 9 weeks to make sure that the student is still progressing at that significant level, because by the end of the year you want them ready and prepared to go into the next grade level. If you feel like somewhere in that first, second, third 9 weeks that the student isn't going to be ready to be on grade level expectations for that next grade level, then you want to refer them to target. It's a red flag to say, hey, there needs to be some additional interventions and we need to watch this child as they go into the next grade level, because they've already been retained. So this is the second time that they're seeing all of this information. In the intermediate grades, you also want to take a look at what their FCAT scores are. Let's say you have a 4th grade student. If you have a 4th grade student who made a level 3 in 3rd grade and shows up as a bubble student on your aid data, then that would signify that they were almost in danger of being a level 2. Or if they're a level 2 and they're a bubble student, they were almost in danger of being a level 1 student. And so you really have to watch their progress, see how they're doing on not only the summative, on the end of the year diagnostic expectations, but you also need to closely monitor what their grades are and what their formative assessment tells you against the other formative assessment in the grade level. You'll really want to go into item analysis on some of their formative assessments, especially in reading and mathematics, to identify if there are areas of weakness where you need to implement interventions at that time. If you get to the point where you've looked at the dibbles data, you've looked at the diagnostic data, you've looked at their grades, you've looked at their DRAs, and those things signify that there's an issue, then you certainly want to take a child to target. Don't wait too long, because you want to take them to target so that you can get interventions put in place to assist them in raising the level of their, not only the instruction that you do with them in small groups, but the level of how the child is progressing. You need them to progress so they can be at end of the year expectations as they move into the next grade level. Always keeping the end in mind. Whether the if the strategies that you're using are working with a child, and the child, you see raised levels on DRAs, they fall out in the middle of the year diagnostics to be not in the lowest 25%, then you know that some of the strategies that you're implementing in the classroom are working. But if you hit a wall where you feel like you've tried everything and you just don't know what else to try, and their progress doesn't seem to be moving along like the progress with the rest of the students in your class, then you want to be sure that you refer the student to the target process. The target process is designed so that once your strategies are exhausted, they will have other strategies for you to try to help students be successful in the classroom.